Your heart's racing, your mind spinning with 1,000 thoughts. The deadline's approaching, and it feels like the walls are closing in. We've all been there. That moment when stress feels like it's taking over everything. But what if I told you that stress isn't your enemy? What if the very thing that feels like it's breaking you down could actually be rebuilt into something that makes you stronger? Let me share something that happened just last week. I was sitting in a cafe when I overheard a conversation between two friends. One was describing her overwhelming work situation. Impossible deadlines, demanding boss, the works. Her friend's response caught my attention. Instead of offering the usual "just relax" or "stay positive" advice, she asked, "What if your stress is trying to tell you something?" That question stuck with me because it points to something crucial about stress that most people miss. Stress isn't just this negative force we need to eliminate. It's actually our body's way of preparing us to face challenges. Think about it. That surge of energy you feel before a big presentation, that's your body giving you extra resources to perform better. The key isn't to eliminate stress completely. It's to learn how to work with it rather than against it. I learned this lesson the hard way early in my career. I was working on a major project and the pressure was intense. Every morning I would wake up feeling like I couldn't breathe. My solution? I tried every relaxation technique I could find on the internet. Meditation apps, breathing exercises, herbal teas, you name it, I tried it. But nothing seemed to work. In fact, the more I tried to force myself to relax, the more stressed I became. The turning point came when I finally realized something crucial. I was spending so much energy fighting against stress that I was actually creating more of it. It was like being in quicksand. The more I struggled against it, the deeper I sank. That's when I started approaching stress differently. Instead of seeing stress as the enemy, I began treating it like a message from my body and mind. When that familiar tightness in my chest would appear, instead of immediately trying to suppress it, I'd ask myself, what is this trying to tell me? Sometimes the answer was obvious. I needed to better prepare for a presentation, or I was taking on too many commitments. Other times it was more subtle. Maybe I was avoiding a difficult conversation that needed to happen. This shift in perspective changed everything. But let me be clear, this isn't about just thinking positively or denying that stress exists. It's about developing a more nuanced understanding of stress and learning to work with our body's natural responses rather than against them. Let me share a story that really illustrates this point. A friend of mine, a talented surgeon, used to get incredibly stressed before difficult operations. She tried everything to calm her nerves, meditation, visualization, you name it. Nothing seemed to help. Then she learned something fascinating about the physiological similarities between stress and excitement. You see, the physical symptoms of stress and excitement are virtually identical. Increased heart rate, heightened awareness, surge of energy. The only real difference is how we interpret these sensations. When she started reframing her pre-surgery stress as her body preparing for peak performance, something remarkable happened. The symptoms didn't go away, but they no longer felt debilitating. Instead, they became a signal that her body was getting ready to perform at its best. This brings us to something crucial about stress management that often gets overlooked: the role of perception. We often think managing stress is about reducing or eliminating these physical sensations. But what if it's more about changing our relationship with these sensations? Think about athletes before a big competition. They experience many of the same physical symptoms we associate with stress: racing heart, butterflies in the stomach, heightened awareness. But they have learned to interpret these sensations as signs of readiness rather than distress. This isn't just positive thinking, it's a fundamental shift in how we understand and work with our body's natural responses. I saw this principle in action recently while working with a group of students preparing for their final exams. One particular student was struggling with severe test anxiety. Her typical approach was to try to suppress her anxiety through various relaxation techniques. While this helped temporarily, the anxiety would always come roaring back, often stronger than before. We tried a different approach. Instead of fighting the anxiety, we got curious about it. When she felt her heart racing, instead of immediately trying to calm down, she'd take a moment to notice what thoughts or concerns might be triggering this response. Often she discovered specific topics she wasn't fully confident about. This anxiety, which had felt like her enemy, actually became a useful tool for identifying areas that needed more preparation. But here's where it gets really interesting. This approach didn't just help her manage stress better, it actually improved her performance. By using stress as information rather than fighting it as an enemy, she could channel that energy into focused preparation. Her grades improved, not because she became less stressed, but because she learned to work with her stress rather than against it. This brings us to another crucial aspect of stress management: the importance of having multiple tools and strategies. Too often we try to find that one perfect technique that will solve all our stress-related issues. But stress is complex, and different situations call for different approaches. Let me share a practical example from my own life. I used to have a one-size-fits-all approach to stress management. Whenever I felt stress, I tried to meditate. Now, meditation is a powerful tool, but it's not always the right tool for every situation. Sometimes, when I'm feeling stressed about a lack of progress on a project, what I really need is to take action, not sit still. Other times, when I'm overwhelmed by too much activity, meditation is exactly what I need. Think of stress management like having a toolbox. Different situations require different tools. The key is not just having these tools, but knowing when to use each one. This comes from developing what I call stress awareness. The ability to recognize not just that you are stressed, but what kind of stress you are experiencing and what it's telling you. For instance, the stress you feel before a public speaking engagement is different from the stress of being stuck in traffic. The first might be better addressed through preparation and reframing techniques, while the second might call for breathing exercises or finding ways to make productive use of the unavoidable delay. This brings us to something that's often overlooked in discussions about stress management: the role of our environment. We often focus so much on internal techniques that we forget how much our surroundings affect our stress levels. I learned this lesson while redesigning my workspace. For years, I had my desk facing a wall, with my back to the door. I didn't think much about it until I noticed how tense I'd get whenever someone walked into the room behind me. It was a small thing, but it was creating low-level stress throughout my day. Simply rearranging my furniture so I could see the door made a noticeable difference in my stress levels. This might seem like a trivial example, but it points to something important. Sometimes the best way to manage stress isn't to develop better coping mechanisms, but to identify and eliminate a necessary source of stress in our environment. Think about the notifications on your phone, the clutter on your desk, the way you schedule your day. These environmental factors can either amplify or reduce your stress levels. Making strategic changes to your environment can be one of the most effective stress management techniques, yet it's often overlooked in favor of more internal approach. Let's talk about something else that rarely gets discussed in conversations about stress management: the social dimension. We often think of stress management as a solo endeavor, but some of the most effective stress management strategies involve other people. I remember working with a team where everyone was struggling with high stress levels. Instead of each person trying to manage their stress individually, they started having regular stress check-ins during team meetings. People would briefly share what was causing them stress and what kind of support they needed. This simple practice not only helped individuals manage their stress better, but also improved team performance because people could support each other more effectively. This brings us to an important point about stress management in the modern world: the role of boundaries. With technology making us constantly accessible, setting and maintaining healthy boundaries has become crucial for managing stress. But here's the thing about boundaries: they are not just about saying no to others, they are about saying yes to your own well-being. I learned this from a successful entrepreneur who seemed to handle enormous pressure with remarkable grace. Her secret? Clear, consistent boundaries. She had specific times for checking emails, designated deep work, periods where she was completely unavailable, and regular breaks built into her schedule. These boundaries weren't rigid rules that added more stress. They were supportive structures that helped her manage her energy and attention. As we wrap up, I want to emphasize something important. Effective stress management isn't about eliminating stress from your life. That's neither possible nor desirable. It's about developing a more sophisticated relationship with stress, understanding its messages and responding in ways that support rather than undermine your well-being. Start by paying attention to your own stress patterns. Notice what triggers your stress, how it manifests in your body, and what strategies work best in different situations. Remember, stress management is a skill that develops over time through practice and observation. And speaking of developing beneficial skills, if you found this exploration of stress management helpful, you will definitely want to check out our previous video on Growth Mindset: Transform Challenges into Opportunities. Why? Because developing a growth mindset can dramatically change how you perceive and respond to stressful situations. You can find the link to that video in the description below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to stay updated with more videos that will help you develop practical skills for a better life. Thanks for watching Elevate with Salman. Until next time, remember, stress isn't your enemy, it's feedback. Learn to listen to it, understand it, and work with it rather than against it.